Wakefield, while I was president of the company, we opened the Dallas office.
I got a call from our dishonorable chairman of the board, a gentleman named Leon J. Peters, who told me that we're opening a Dallas office and he just hired a superstar from Los Angeles. And notwithstanding the fact that Bob was a lawyer, Leon knew he was going to be a great broker and someone to lead us into the state of Texas. And that I was to get him to sign his employment agreement immediately. So that was my charge.
You know, I have first impressions of people, and I have these gut feelings, and mine was always a very positive one about Bob Edge. There's something nice about looking at Bob. Just a nice way about him. He always has a smile. He's a happy person, and he just gave me a real good feeling about having this man with Cushman and Wakefield.
We had a number of hurdles to get over, and the employment agreement wasn't signed in 24 hours as our chairman had directed me. It actually took us several days, and I probably said no to Bob about 40 or 50 times to different things he wanted. And then he finally, after some difficult soul searching, I think, decided he would sign the standard form Cushman and Wakefield employment agreement and hopefully never have to deal with Arthur Moranti, the lawyer for the firm, again.
Bob, at one point, was the branch manager of the Dallas office, and I decided, much against his wishes at the time, that he would make not that he wasn't a good branch manager, but I felt his talents were being wasted. And that Bob would do a lot more for himself and be a lot more productive for the company by going back to brokerage. And I put him back on brokerage, and he has certainly proven that I was right. I wasn't right too many times, I guess, while I was president, but that was one of the good decisions I made.
And without appearing too crude, I will tell you that that decision he made standing next to me at a urinal one day in a Texas barbecue restaurant, where the two of us decided for some reason to begin to talk about his career, and we agreed that he should pursue the real estate brokerage business and leave the management side of the business.
He's altered the skyline of Dallas, there's no doubt about it. Some of the biggest deals done in Dallas, Texas were done by Bob Edge. And that's great to know. It's great for Cushman and Wakefield.
Probably the most significant from an industry perspective was when Bob handled a highly confidential relocation of American Airlines headquarters out of the city of New York.
I was besieged by every city. Everybody wanted people. And the economy wasn't so hot. They were all looking for new tenants.
This was when a time when Dallas was just getting on the radar screen as a location.
Bob was very helpful, as I said, and he picked me up at the airport and we went driving around, and he had one building to show me, and it was exactly what fit our needs.
It clearly was a major step for the city of Dallas, attracting American Airlines and their hub and their headquarters.
This was a very natural thing, and he did a good job of presenting it. I think we wrapped it up in record time.
Bob handled it in absolute confidentiality, which was very difficult to do. And he negotiated that transaction and created a major benefit for American Airlines in doing so.
We made the deal, just the two of us. Nobody else was involved. He may have had some staff behind him, I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, it was Bob Edge that made it possible for American Airlines to come to Dallas.
It was a great example of what Cushman and Wakefield does best, and a great example of the sophistication, the class, and the competence of Bob Edge as a real estate professional.
Bob has sort of helped to outline the Metroplex, and he's helped to influence the development of this whole area over his period of years.
I met Bob first on an occasion which wasn't so enjoyable, which is when I needed Bob to step up when our longtime Dallas branch manager had stepped down. Bob was the first to raise his hand and say, "Can I help?" And in fact he did. On a very temporary basis, he held the company together, for which, Bob, I'm eternally grateful, and I know I eternally owe you. But beyond that, he stepped up in a way in which we would ask senior leadership of the company to do, and he did it with class.
Whenever you would go on a client call with Bob, or go on a space tour, and we've all had the same experience, you'd get into Bob's car, which during some periods might be a convertible more often than not, and the first thing he would do as he turned on the engine would be to push in his Aggie fight song, and that would be your traveling music while you went to your client meeting. So you'd have to prepare or make your final notes in preparation for the meeting you were going to have with the Aggie fight song in the background.
And he'd always have that Texas Aggies song, the football, at the football games. He'd blast it away while we were going to and from the airport. One of his favorite things.
Are you willing to sing the Texas Aggie song?
And Bob, an apology. There's not a chance I'll sing the Texas Aggie song.
Bob Edge, Texas A&M University.
In all of the competitiveness that goes on in that business, though, Bob is always the true source of information. He is the, to use an expression, he is the honest broker. He is the person from whom you can always expect to get the straight story.
He truly has become a leader as a real estate brokerage professional, a tremendously successful person and professional in his business, in his chosen profession of real estate brokerage, and has been able to do that by continuing to be a class act and an absolute professional from a behavior point of view, from the point of view of setting an example for younger brokers and for all of us who had the opportunity to work with him for the past 30 years.
How do you describe someone whom others look up to because of his success? Only one way. How do you describe a person who leads by example? You describe that as a person very much like Bob. How do you think of a person who mentors others, cares about the firm as much as his own success, and day in, day out demonstrates a commitment to what he does? You describe Bob as a uniquely committed person for excellence.
He's developed so many good people in that Dallas office that I think is so important. And I think Bob has done a wonderful job on that score.
Bob did hire me. He did, 27 years ago. The things about Bob, working with Bob, that I saw early on in my career and still see it today, 27 years later, is how much optimism he has. He has got to be told maybe 15 times no before he will accept a no from a prospect.
As a young female starting my professional career 25 years ago, the only role models were male. Well, I got lucky because Bob Edge was one of the best. The reason Bob was different is because he cared.
Bob's passion for real estate is visceral. It's deep. He's committed to serving the client and getting the best transaction for each client. It's not about the commission. It's not about the notoriety. It's about serving his client, and that is a consistent theme that Bob carries forth day to day. And I think that's why after 30 years he's had such a tremendous impact here in Dallas and also in branding Cushman and Wakefield.
People look at Cushman and Wakefield and think it's a privilege to be here. People that I talk to on a daily basis that want to work for Cushman and Wakefield know that it's a privilege to work for Cushman and Wakefield. And that all stems from 30 years ago when Bob Edge opened this office.
Bob took me under his wing when I knew nothing. I didn't even know that a Century 21 jacket was yellow. And he taught me everything I know from the ground up. And because he took the time and allowed me to be involved in everything as he went about his day-to-day business, I literally learned in dog years. I feel like I've been one of the biggest beneficiaries of his tenure because he's had so much experience before he got to know me, and he was able to give me that in the last 10 years.
Every time I've worked with Bob on transactions, I have learned something new from him. He's just an incredible source of information and knowledge and street smarts.
This is a man who brings everything to everything he does. There's a passion, there's an energy, there's an enthusiasm, and most of all, most apparent is his love of Cushman Wakefield and everything that he does.
His legacy will continue at Cushman and Wakefield and within the state of Texas long after he decides to retire, which hopefully won't be for at least another 20 years.
I can't imagine any better way to honor a real giant in this community than to put money towards education. Bob, of course, understands the value of education. He's been very supportive from a charitable and from a social standpoint with respect to education. He certainly supported Texas A&M, he supported SMU. He supported public education in Dallas, and I've been privileged to watch that. So I can't imagine any better way to honor a person like Bob than to put forward funds that will help young people advance their education